I know that I also said this for the previous Entei episode, aka episode 78, but they had us in the first half, huh? Again and again with Entei. First, they bamboozle us with "it's the wrong Entei," and then with "there never was an Entei to begin with. It was Gouging Fire all along." They really threw us for a loop. After months and months of looking forward to Liko and friends finding and having to inevitably battle the hero Entei, ever since we learned the identity of the remaining heroes all the way back in episode 25, we are hit with the shocking realization that, much like the cake, the Entei is a lie. I guess this explains why we got episode 78. Perhaps they didn't want to completely disappoint us by not giving us an Entei after we were promised one. Though this of course brings up the question of, was Gouging Fire selected to be the 5th hero from the start, and the Consolation Entei was also part of the plan from the beginning to serve as a clever twist, blindsiding us so that they could deliver a surprising series of events? Or were they set on having an Entei from the get-go, and then they changed their minds at some point after revealing that the Volcano Pokemon was one of the 6 heroes, likely because Gouging Fire allows Horizons to showcase more of the latest generation of games, aka Generation 9, which is what the latest anime series is supposed to do. Plus, they knew that it being an ancestor of Entei means that it's a switcheroo they could get away with. They then decided that they still wanted to give us an Entei as advertised, hence episode 78. Or maybe they made the change solely because, on top of it being fitting for the reasons I just listed, they also realized that it would make for quite a shocker. We probably will never know the truth of the matter. Regardless of the reason, the fact stands that they had us in the first half. We were completely fooled, more so because we were all scratching our heads trying to come up with a reason, an explanation as to why or how an Entei ended up as a Gouging Fire. We were madly and desperately seeking answers to a question that, much like Entei, was never there to begin with. Well played, Horizons. Well played. Though I must say that initially I had some serious gripes with and concerns about this turn of events, because at a glance, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Why? Well, because of episode 75, which of course provided us with a look at what happened 100 years ago, and clearly there was no Gouging Fire. There was an Entei instead, signaling that we were seemingly lied to. We were shown a fake flashback, likely to protect the secret, to keep the truth from us so that they could shock us with the reveal. Now, wanting to surprise us by concealing facts is one thing, a perfectly okay thing that Horizons has done a lot, but achieving the same result by blatantly lying to us using fictitious and or misleading information is another thing entirely, a thing that is not okay. You cannot have a story that contradicts itself, a narrative that is not congruent or that doesn't make sense. This is just poor writing that erodes the audience's trust. It brings into question everything that happens. Can we really believe anything we are shown? So I was quite literally completely flabbergasted. I couldn't believe that they actually messed up this badly. However, thankfully, I soon realized that no, they didn't mess up. Quite the contrary, in fact. They cleverly, brilliantly made sure that we were misled until the very end in a way that makes perfect sense. See, Paradox Pokemon are a mystery, a well-kept secret essentially. Even today, little is known about them and few people even know they exist. If this is the case now, imagine what it was like 100 years ago. I noted in my review of episode 75 that some people back then didn't even know what a Rayquaza was, a Pokemon that is renowned today. It's safe to assume then that pretty much no one knew about Paradox Pokemon 100 years ago. So as shown in the flashback, Liko and company see when Pagolo resonates with Gouging Fire after it decides to join them, Lucius and Risto got to Area 0 and upon encountering Gouging Fire, they could only refer to it as Entei because that's what it resembles, Entei being something they did know about. This goes back to what I said in my preview discussion for this episode. When faced with the unknown, all we can do is rely on what we do know in order to try to decipher or understand the mystery before us. That's exactly what Lucius and Risto did. They met a strange, unknown creature that they had never seen before. But since it looks like an Entei, it must be an Entei. Also, I just want to mention here that seeing Lucius break Gouging Fire like a wild stallion is quite funny, and it shows that Gouging Fire prefers to play games with someone to have them earn its trust, as opposed to just battling them. Something that plays, pun intended, into how it engages with Liko and company. So episode 75 showed us an Entei because Risto was the one recounting the story, and from her perspective, the fifth hero is an Entei, hence she referred to it as such, making Liko and company visualize an Entei, in turn making us see an Entei as well, which is why the flashback and reality do not match up. I again think this is masterful storytelling, though there is one caveat. Risto and Lucius had access to the Scarlet Book, which contains an image that depicts a Pokemon that resembles Gouging Fire. This is what Briar used to tell Liko and company about the Pokemon found in Area 0 that resembles Entei, and what she used to expertly decipher that what they encounter is not the legendary Pokemon Entei, but the Paradox Pokemon Gouging Fire instead. Meaning that Lucius and Risto likely could and should have realized the true identity of the mysterious Pokemon they found instead of defaulting to calling it an Entei and moving on. Moreover, Risto could have mentioned that yeah, one of the heroes is an Entei, but a strange, special one that is much bigger, more monstrous, etc. But I guess maybe she didn't think this was worth mentioning since it had no effect on what happened in Laqua, which is ultimately the point of the story she told. So yeah, while at a glance it seems like they fumbled the story big time, in reality they were able to make it make sense without sacrificing the secret, allowing them to still set us up for the big shocker. However, they were not able to accomplish this without a few plot holes. Now speaking of Briar figuring out that they were up against the Gouging Fire, not Entei, this is something that I very much loved about this episode. The process of unmasking the strange Pokemon before them was very cool, especially since Liko and company facilitated this journey to the truth by battling it. They knew something was up, but it wasn't until Gouging Fire used the Dragon Pulse, a Dragon-type move, that they were, okay, wait, Entei cannot use Dragon-type moves. Maybe this isn't an Entei after all. At which point they realized that they were up against a Paradox Pokemon, one that is not just a Fire-type, but also a Dragon-type, which even influenced their strategy, which is cool. After all, they realized that Water-type moves are no longer super effective, Grass and Fire are even less effective, and Electric-type moves are now not very effective, leaving Stomping Tantrum, which curiously continues to be a trump card, as their only viable choice. Moreover, seeing Gouging Fire use Raging Fury, which I initially understandably thought was Outrage, is what ultimately led to Briar deciphering that the name of the Paradox Pokemon before them is Gouging Fire, since seeing it use Raging Fury reminded her of a pillar of fire. While obviously most of us went into this episode already knowing who and what Gouging Fire is, for anyone that somehow did not know this, getting to organically learn about it together with the characters is very cool. This is a realistic and fitting way to have characters figure out new things in a way that rewards unknowing members of the audience while keeping it interesting for those that already know. Now, of course, we cannot talk about this episode without going over the battle. I think it was great overall. My favorite part about it was seeing Gouging Fire in action. Its signature move, Burning Bulwark, was beautifully brought to life in the anime. It was just insanely cool to see it running around while cloaked in an aura of intense heat that evaporated and ignited everything that came into contact with it, turning it into an unstoppable force of nature. Better yet, the way it couldn't remain like this for long, and how it couldn't do this repeatedly back to back due to it consuming too much energy, was a brilliant and realistic way to portray how in the games, it and other moves like it have a higher chance of failing the more times they are used in succession. Raging Fury was also amazing to see, and it only added to the walking inferno that Gouging Fire was portrayed as. Finally seeing it part the clouds with Dragon Pulse so that the sun could hit it, triggering its ability and the ability of almost every ancient Paradox Pokemon, Photosynthesis, was just magnificent, both visually and in terms of showcasing even more of what Gouging Fire is capable of, and this made it even more imposing. Now, while Gouging Fire was who impressed me the most in this battle, that's not to say that Liko and friends didn't have their moments too. Seeing Dot assume the role of leader by coming up with the strategy that they used for this battle, a strategy that she had to constantly evolve and refine to overcome every new trick Gouging Fire revealed, was just wonderful. Even Fried acknowledged her viability as a commander and strategist, and he deemed her worthy of playing said roles, despite the fact that he is likely a better candidate. But seeing her determination inspired him to entrust her with such a critical responsibility. I did not expect this to be an episode that further showcased Dot's incredible growth, but I'm so glad it did. I was delightfully surprised. Extra points because she even said, while smiling, that battling a new Pokemon is fun. Quaxwell learning Aqua Cutter is another highlight of the episode, especially given that he learned it by using Air Cutter while in the water, which is fitting, and that this is yet another thing I did not expect from this episode. Hence, it was yet another amazing surprise. The return of the classic water conducts electricity strategy, which is how they were ultimately able to win, was both funny and cool. Having the starters all terrestrialize together for their final stand against the powerful opponent before them never gets old. It's always so epic and cool to see. In this case specifically, it was awesome how they surrounded Gouging Fire, peppering it with attacks from all directions, aiming to overwhelm it and ultimately lure it into the river for the aforementioned electric surprise. Finally, having the usual straight-up battle be replaced by a high-stakes game of get the belt back was a fun twist that, yeah, didn't really change what Liko and friends had to do, but it did provide them with a realistic way to win, seeing as defeating Gouging Fire when they couldn't even defeat an Entei was not really feasible. This was just a slightly different approach that was refreshing, and it highlighted the more playful nature of Gouging Fire. I especially like how before it stole the belt, Gouging Fire tricked everyone by pretending that it was going to join Liko and company right away without a fight. Everyone being the characters, all of us knew it wouldn't be that easy. So yeah, overall this episode was fantastic. Narrative inconsistencies aside, the way Horizons toyed with our expectations was nothing short of brilliant, taking something we had been anticipating for so long and flipping it completely on its head to deliver a marvelous twist was magnificent. The battle was supremely intense, visually stunning, and packed with strategy and cool, amazing moments. Giving Dot such an awesome chance to shine, having Quaxwell learn a new move, and showcasing the true, fearsome, and mostly unique power of Gouging Fire only elevated this episode further. The reveal was again initially jarring, but it was handled in a way that ultimately made sense within the story's logic, keeping us engaged and surprised every step of the way, while also deepening the lore surrounding Lucius and his legendary adventure. Having the episode end with Rayquaza's sudden appearance is the cherry on top, ensuring that this episode not only concludes on a high note, but also that the next one can start with a bang. Horizons once again proves that it's unafraid to take risks, and whether or not they always land perfectly, they certainly keep us on our toes. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, feel free to click the links on screen. And if you'd like to support the channel and help me keep making content like this, you can find ways to do so in the description below. Your support truly means the world to me. Thank you so much for watching, and let's meet again in the next video.